A recent neurological study reveals that prolonged exposure to toxic relationships activates the exact same pain matrix in the human brain as physical violence, shorting your life expectancy by up to 1/3. Are you unknowingly trading years of your life just to maintain the illusion of peace? How many hours have you wasted trying to fix someone who was sent into your life only to break your focus? For a long time, I believed that keeping every door open to everyone was the ultimate sign of empathy and maturity. I tolerated the constant noise, the subtle passive-aggressive comments, and the unspoken jealousy from people I called brothers, until my own energy collapsed and my creative business fell apart completely. But then a terrifying question hit me in the middle of a sleepless night. Was I being a patient friend, or was I just a coward hiding my fear of loneliness behind a mask of loyalty? I realized that protecting the boundary of your inner circle is not an act of selfishness, but the very first responsibility entrusted to you by the creator of your destiny. The first type of person you must recognize is the comfort enabler. These are the individuals who disguise their complacency as absolute loyalty. They will never challenge your bad habits because your stagnation makes them feel safe. I remember having a close friend who celebrated every single decision I made, even when I was clearly burning my own life down. When I skipped meetings or made poor business choices, he would smile and tell me that the world just was not ready for my genius. At first, it felt like genuine support, a warm blanket in a cold world. But during a quiet moment of self-reflection, a painful truth surfaced in my mind. Was he really being supportive? Or was I surrounding myself with yes men because I was too terrified to face my own flaws? I realized that someone who always agrees with your mistakes is not your ally. They are an anchor holding you back from your true potential. True growth requires the friction of truth, not the comfort of a shared compromise. Let us perform a quick 20-second test on your current inner circle right now. Think of the person who praises you the most and ask yourself if they have ever had the courage to tell you a painful truth that you actually needed to hear. The second group you must identify is the anchor to your old self. These are people who grew comfortable with a version of you that no longer exists. They do not necessarily want you to fail, but they deeply fear your progression because it highlights their own stagnation. When I began shifting my focus toward building a serious digital media ecosystem, my old childhood friends started making subtle jokes about my new lifestyle. They would constantly remind me of the reckless things we did a decade ago, trying to pull me back into the familiar comfort of the past. For months, I felt an intense wave of guilt during our weekly dinners. I started questioning whether I was becoming arrogant, or if I was abandoning the people who knew me before any of this success. But I had to realize that loyalty to your past should never become a prison sentence for your future. You cannot lift people who are determined to stay exactly where they are. It is an exhausting emotional tax to constantly downplay your growth, just to make others feel secure in their inertia. Growth requires a willingness to be misunderstood by those who only love the old version of you. The third category of people you must immediately remove is the silent energy drainer. These are the chronic victims who treat your empathy as a free dumping ground for their endless emotional trash. They never call to ask how you are doing. They only appear when they need a free therapist to validate their misery. I remember a winter when my phone would ring late every night with the exact same friend crying about the exact same problem. I sat there for hours, absorbing her bitterness, her anxiety, and her dark view of the world until my own creative drive began to bleed out. I became irritable with my own family, and my passion for producing media completely vanished for weeks. But during a heavy moment of exhaustion, I had to confront my own boundary issues. Was I being a good human being, or was I just an emotional garbage can because I was too afraid of being judged as cold? I had to accept the harsh reality that your emotional and spiritual fuel is a finite resource given to you to build your life, not to burn away on people who refuse to heal themselves. You cannot save a drowning person if they are determined to pull you under the water with them. The fourth person you must clean out from your life is the realistic doubter. These individuals always mask their jealousy and fear of change under the guise of protecting you and being practical. They are the ones who look at your grand vision for a new digital empire or a massive physical construction project and immediately point out every single reason why you are guaranteed to fail. When I first shared my plan to build a massive production system, managing over a dozen automated social media channels simultaneously, a senior colleague laughed and told me to stay in my lane because the market was already too saturated. His words felt like a heavy brick tied to my ankles, and for 2 long weeks I completely froze and stopped writing any production scripts. I began to doubt my own technical skills, wondering if I was just an unrealistic dreamer who was bound to lose all his capital. But then I looked closely at his own life and realized he had been stuck in the exact same uninspiring corporate office for the last 15 years. Was I genuinely listening to wise counsel? Or was I allowing a man who had already given up on his own destiny to dictate the boundaries of mine? It is an absolute psychological fact that a crab inside a bucket will always try to pull down the one crab that is about to escape over the rim. Do not let someone else's narrow imagination become the ultimate ceiling for your life's purpose. The 5th and final type of person you must cut out immediately is the silent competitor. These are people who celebrate your victories with their mouths, but betray their true envy with their eyes. They do not want you to fail entirely. They just need to make sure that you never become more successful than they are. I remember the exact afternoon I launched a major commercial media channel that gained 50,000 subscribers in its very first week. Almost everyone in my circle sent long text messages filled with praise, but one specific friend simply left a short 3-word comment and then went completely silent for a month. When we finally met for dinner, he spent the entire evening making passive-aggressive remarks about how luck plays a bigger role than actual hard work. I spent days feeling incredibly guilty, wondering if I had unconsciously bragged too much, or if I was being overly sensitive to his cold behavior. But I had to learn to trust the instinct of my own body over the polite smiles on people's faces. Envy is a silent spiritual poison that cannot be cured by your kindness or your humility. When your blessings become too large for their insecurity to tolerate, their hidden competition will always turn into open hostility. It is far better to walk forward with a small circle of 3 genuine souls than a stadium full of silent competitors clapping for your downfall. Removing these 5 types of people from your inner circle does not mean you stop loving them or that you wish them harm. It simply means you love your own purpose and your destiny more than you love a false sense of comfort. Some individuals are only meant to be a single chapter in your story, not the entire book. When you try to force a temporary person into a permanent position in your life, you only create deep suffering for both sides. I spent years crying over lost connections, until I looked back and realized that every painful removal was actually a quiet act of divine protection, making room for the right partnerships to arrive. Have you been holding on to someone out of fear, or are you finally ready to clear the space for your next level of growth? Letting go is the ultimate declaration that you trust your future more than your history. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and if this message gave you the clarity you needed, please subscribe to the channel to join our community of intentional growth.